Just my luck. I accidentally stopped the recording again and actually ended the recording session itself. So once again, I have to create another video, which is a continuation. So I guess this will be a it continues to be a multi-part video thing. Now I know on YouTube why sometimes when you look at videos and such, you'll see part 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess it's a fairly common thing. So continuing, I apologize for that, but hopefully this doesn't cause much of a distraction. Continuing from where I left off, we're going to go ahead and upload our second stack to create the worker nodes for the most part. So let us go ahead and, okay, I better refresh my page here. Well, I guess when it rains, it pours. Okay, so I had to re-log in. Apparently my session had expired there. So using our worker node setup Cloudformation script, we'll go ahead and select that. So we will call this EKS demo workers. And we're going to point this to the EKS demo cluster. Our security group is going to be the control plane one. We'll call this demo node group. We want a maximum of 2 nodes here. So basically we only want 2 worker nodes, and we want type of small. And here's that image ID from Amazon that'll actually, at least in Northeast region, that comes configured with the kube proxy in the other agent on there too for so for Kubernetes, so that you don't have to install them on the individual nodes themselves. And it's a Linux instance as well. So we grab our EC2 key pair that we had to create. Our VPC is going to be this EKS demo setup. And we'll go ahead and include the 3 subnets that got provisioned with the first Cloudformation script. We'll do next. Again, in production, you want to give it a tag, but for demo purposes, we don't really care. And here's our information. So let's go ahead and acknowledge that and create. This will take a little bit of time. Let's see here. Is it creating the stack? Oh, that was interesting. Normally, when you go back to the screen here, it would actually show it, so I had to refresh it. I'm getting all kinds of interesting little things happening right now. So I'm going to go ahead and monitor this, and I will pause the video and resume it when this is finished. Thank you. Okay, that finally finished here. So we've got our demo workers and our demo setup, as you can see on this one right here. It created a whole bunch of things for us. It created a role, our security groups that are needed, and what we're basically doing here, the end result, and it's going to create our EC2 instance as well. The end result is it's creating these down here. So we manually created this master when we created the cluster, and now we're creating these 2 worker nodes here with this handy dandy script that you can get from the tutorial when you take it. So there's really nothing magical about this. It just basically, a whole lot of Cloudformation setup for the most part. So let's take a look at what we got here. We go to our EC2 instances. We now have 2 running instances because we've created our 2 worker nodes, as you can see. Each instance is going to have a dedicated volume associated with them. And let's see what we got here. So we got 2 running instances. There we go. So this is from our previous, my previous examples and stuff that I was doing when I was tearing down the stacks. Okay, so now we actually have our cluster up and running, and we have 2 worker nodes theoretically that are supposed to be communicating to the cluster. So again, as I mentioned, this is not a tutorial on Kubernetes, but I'm not going to get any nodes showing up here, but technically what you should have, if you've configured this correctly, is you're going to have the two nodes show up with this command here, but instead it's going to say no resources found. And for the most part, for the reason for that is when you follow the tutorial and all that, there is a IAM authenticator that you have to download as well, which basically allows you to get access from your worker nodes back to your master node. And I went ahead and installed the authenticator, and you will too if you take the tutorial. What we need to do is we need to actually apply another template that they provide to us, which basically is called the AWS auth, and we have a role ARN. So what we got to do is go back to our Cloudformation stack here, and I did that on purpose just so you could see. Click on this one, go to the outputs. As you can see, we've got each instance is going to run under this particular role. So that's very important. So we have to take that value, go back in here, and put it in there. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and apply that given role. So I'm going to say kubectl apply -f AWS auth YAML. Okay, so we went ahead and created that. And now you can see our two nodes are showing up. They're still booting up, so they're basically in the not ready state. But where we're at right now is we're trying to get it to the point where these two nodes here are properly communicating back and forth to the master node in the control plane. So let's go ahead and rerun this command again. And as you can see, now they are ready. So the good news is up until this point, our cluster has actually been created, and we have 2 worker nodes on the cluster, and we're all set to go. We can actually start deploying applications. But first, before I do that, another little thing I wanted to show you is Kubernetes comes with a dashboard, and that you can visually view all of your deployments and your services and things of that nature. And I can include a link to the GitHub thing too. But basically, I'm going to go ahead and install this dashboard by going through all these given steps here. And you can too if you choose to. But for the purposes of this, I'm going to go ahead and let's see here. Pause the video for a second. I'm going to pause the video and then actually install this because you don't want to watch me install this. It's just basically running a few Cloudformation scripts and waiting and things like that. I'll leave that up to you as an exercise in your own, but it's pretty straightforward too. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I installed all the necessary templates, if you will, to start up or to configure the dashboard within the control plane and all that. So I need to kick off the proxy server so that we can communicate to the dashboard. And let's go ahead and try opening up the browser and see if we can actually log in. Okay, that's a good sign. So that's from our local host. I am going to, there's 2 ways to log in, through kubeconfig or through token. So we'll log in through token. So in order to get the token itself, what we're going to have to do at this point is run another kube control command. Let's see what we got here. So it'll bring in this given token. We will paste that inside of here. We don't really want to save that. Okay, so now I've actually logged in. So what we've got here is basically it's a graphical user interface, a pretty nice one. And basically you can see all this information from the command line if you're a command line kind of a person. I'm kind of a command line person, but I really like the dashboard. And this is actually Kubernetes. So we've actually got it configured now to actually talk to our cluster on AWS. And what this basically does is, you can traverse all of your Kubernetes namespaces. As you create different applications and such, you're probably going to want to create a namespace for each of those. So namespaces are basically all as they are, like in any other programming language. You can examine your cluster. Let's see here. You can see your different namespaces. You can see your nodes. So these are those two EC2 instances, but you don't see them as EC2 instances in this interface because, again, this is Kubernetes. And so it's basically an abstraction layer on top of the underlying pinnings, whether it's running on Azure or AWS. So these are your given nodes. Your roles that you have are pods. We don't have an application deployed yet. Replica set, replication controllers, all of these kinds of things in your configuration map. So we've got our dashboard set up. So we are real close. So now what I'm going to go ahead and do, and by the way, again, if you want to SSH into your EC2 instances, make sure that you open up port 22 for your security group. But let's go ahead and try to deploy and run this sample. This is another part of the tutorial, the guest book application. So, and again, the reason I didn't show you all the steps for the dashboard is this is kind of an EKS tutorial, not tutorial, just a demo. And I didn't want to bore you with all the steps on the dashboard since you can actually follow the GitHub and all the instructions there to go through that. Okay, this guestbook application is not going to be the most exciting one, but it's a good demonstration of what you're going to see if you follow the tutorial. So basically, it's going to have two microservices. It's going to have your Redis one and your front end, and you'll see the end result of the application. But this is our back end, and we're going to have a Redis master and a slave, and two slaves, if you will. And these are going to be pods. And then here's our front end too. So you'll see how they get distributed. So let's first of all install the master, Redis master. And what we can do is we can say kubectl apply -f Redis master deployment. Okay, and again, since we set up our AWS IAM authenticator and stuff, we're able to, and our kube config file, we're able to communicate directly to our AWS cluster locally on my PC back here. So now we got the master set up. Let's go ahead and do the slaves. And again, this is from that GitHub site. So I'm not really going to go into details in the YAML. It's just basically Kubernetes syntax. So they're basically going to be deployments across the board and with replicas, so you can actually specify. It's basically similar to auto scaling, except for the replicas is going to be like a min value. So Kubernetes is always going to make sure that there's 3 of the front ends running across the various nodes and system because of that value here. And they're fronted by services, which basically let the outside world communicate to the pods directly through IP address. And what's kind of interesting here is the services themselves for the front end is going to be a type load balancer. So AWS is going to actually turn around and create a load balancer with that when we actually apply it. So let me get back to this other window right here. So what I've done is I've created the master and the slaves. So if we say kubectl get pods, you can see that we have one master and we have 2 slaves running right now. So now we want the front end, and that's going to be our next step right here. So bear with me. I just want to go ahead and make sure I got the right name of the file. So we'll say kubectl. Let's say apply -f front end. Okay, so as you can see, it's created that. Let's go ahead and make sure that we have things up and running. So we'll say kubectl get pods again. There's our 3 front ends based on the replica that we said we wanted 3. As far as the slaves, we got 2 of those going simply because we have 2 specified there for the replica. And by the way, this tutorial, it's pulling down these open source, it's pulling down these containers from the registry. So I did not write these. So these are the images right here based on the spec that you get from the deployment files. So let's go back to our command line again. So our pods look okay. Let's take a look at our services. And there you go. We've got our front end service, and we got our master and slave, which these are basically not exposed to the outside world because there's no external IP. The front end is communicating to Redis as a cache. So the idea is we're going to have we got 3 front end pods right now, and they can all communicate back to Redis through the cache itself. So that's how they're going to share data with each other. And this is of type load balancer. And what we can do here is take a look at get nodes. Make sure we've got our 2 nodes running. Just kind of take a look here. I'm just kind of poking around. Describe node. Oops, I didn't like that. Like I say, I'm having some problems with my cut and paste within Git Bash here. So I'm just doing a describe node here on one of them. I just kind of poking around, taking a look, going fishing a little bit. As you can see on the node, you can see some of the agents running on there. We've got our kube proxy. We've got inside of it, we got our dashboard within namespaces here. So just kind of playing around. If we take a look at our dashboard, let's go back to overview. Okay. Take a look at our namespaces there. Take a look at our deployments. We should have some now. So based on those commands that I ran, all of a sudden these are showing up on our dashboard. So again, you'll be able to see the power here. So we've actually, we've got, for the most part, we got our front end application. We got our 2 Redis applications, if you will. We've got our replica sets. So whenever we say we want Kubernetes to maintain a desired state at all times of 3 pods, it's in the form of replica sets with the deployment. It's just basically saying, hey, you have 3 pods up and running, and Kubernetes will manage behind the scenes through EKS which nodes they get run on. But again, keep in mind, this is all basically running on those 2 nodes that we've created. So let's see, we've got our services going on here. So how do you actually access this? So what we want to do, the application itself, we're going to go to EC2 again. And remember how I had said before where the front end is actually, we deployed actually a service to the front end, which is of type load balancer. What we've got right now is what we have created is a load balancer did get created as a result of that last deployment. So if I bring up the details on that and click here, not click, but just copy the DNS name, put it in another window here. Voila. So basically what we are running now, we are actually running the front end, which we don't know which one of the 3 pods it's on, but we are running a front end, which is a guest book. So I could say, hello, this is message 1. And we can submit it, and I could say, hello, this is message 2. And I can submit that. And then I can actually go into this window, so you see that there is actually some magic here. So I'm in my Chrome right there. As you can see, it's kind of like a chat application. Hello, this is from the Chrome browser. We'll go ahead and submit that. As you can see, it's not going to refresh it right here, but if I just refresh the application, you can see. So it's pulling it off from the cache. So this basically is proving that our pods are being hit by the load balancer, which is directing traffic to them behind the scenes, and everything's good to go there. The other really cool thing I wanted to mention here too is in the dashboard. Now you can do this from the command line too, but I'll just show you in the dashboard. So we've got 3 pods running for the most part for the front end pods. So if I say cube ctl get pods, okay, so that's 3 from we got 3 of our front end pods running. I can say I want to scale. I could say actually give me 5. I don't want 3 anymore, I want 5. So now I am scaling that. As you can see, it looks like it's going to try to create 2 more pods. So they're kind of in the pending mode. So let's see what happens here. Well, that's interesting. I must have done something by accident here. Not really sure what happened there, but I went ahead and scaled it back up to 4. So let's see what we got going on here. That's the first time that that's happened. Okay, it's probably my session probably expired there because I did have to re-log in. So now I've scaled it up to 4. Basically, as you can see, we've got 4 pods running right there. Now I can actually scale it back down perhaps. Let's see what we got here. We can say view as YAML. As you can see, you can view each of these right up here. You can view the actual YAML definition for them. Actually, let me show you. There you go. When we said scale, it set the replicas. And again, you can do this from the command line. You could say with the kubectl replicas equals for that on the given deployment part. But this is not a Kubernetes tutorial. This is just a little demo on EKS. So let's set it back down to 3. Okay, so it's going to take a little bit, but it's going to actually downgrade to 3. Again, you can delete, you can view and edit your YAML. There's all kinds of interesting things that you can do. Again, one of the main things, this is just kind of an overview of running Kubernetes on EKS, I should say. But again, one of the main things to keep in mind is if you're going to have a stateful app with Kubernetes, what you can do, and AWS makes this quite easy for you, you would create a persistent volume claim within Kubernetes that'll go ahead and link to your physical volumes over on AWS, but you would do it as a EFS share. So you want to create, so EFS allows you to span availability zones, and that would allow these individual pods, because you can do, you don't really have much of a control unless you start doing more specific things in your definitions to control things to certain nodes. But the whole idea behind Kubernetes, for the most part, is you'd like to have Kubernetes, the master, basically figure out which nodes to schedule your pods on. So the idea is at any given time, you're not really going to be 100% sure which nodes your pods are running on if you allow Kubernetes to do it for you. But in the case of a stateful application, you'll need to have a use EFS in that case because, again, EBS volumes can't span multiple availability zones. So if you encounter that need, go ahead and look into persistent volume claims. So that's pretty much it. I apologize. This ended up being a lot more lengthier than I thought. This was kind of like a lengthy demo of just some of the things that I've been looking at with EKS. And as a matter of fact, I mean, I've gone and I've actually deployed more applications than just the guest book here, but I just kind of wanted to show you what you get with EKS, and hopefully, this will demystify a little bit of EKS for you to the point where you can actually start going to the FAQs or the getting started and go through the tutorials and install the guest book application yourself and the dashboard, and just kind of take a look at it and how the pods run on the individual nodes, which basically behind the scenes get translated to these EC2 instances. So I guess I could ramble on more and more, but I'll probably stop there. And one of the things that you're going to want to do, because this is not free, EKS, when you're done with everything, you're going to probably want to undo your deployments, or you can just basically do what I do, is just tear down your workers and the cluster. You want to make sure you delete the cluster, and then, so you tear down the workers by deleting this stack, and then your demo setup, you probably want to delete that stack. But in between, you're going to probably want to go ahead and into your EKS cluster, and you'll want to delete that because you will be charged again 20 cents per hour. And you don't want to leave this running overnight or for a while if you're just doing this as a demo and learning things. So hopefully that helps. I apologize if it wasn't too detailed at spots or too drawn out at other spots, but again, this wasn't to show you in excruciating detail everything you needed to do. This would just kind of give you a good rough picture of what EKS is and what you can do with it. So thanks for watching, and I'm sorry about the multi-videos here because I kept stopping that recording. So, alrighty, well, you all have a nice one, and thanks again. Bye-bye.